Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Andrew Lately. Grace Kennedy Money Services and Western Union say they will be suspending money transfer services in several of its Western Jamaica locations. They say the decision is a result of an unusually high number of suspected fraudulent transactions being reported. Here's more.
Grace Kennedy's Money Services GKMS, which is Western Union's agent in Jamaica, says the move to suspend money services in several locations across the island is an effort to further enhance its network oversight and the protection of its customers. Initially, GKMS said the suspension would be for some locations in Western Jamaica. However, in an interview with BATV News, Senior Vice President of Operations and Marketing at Grace Kennedy Money Services, Noel Greenland, confirmed that the suspension will affect 7 locations scattered across the country.
3 locations in Montego Bay, St. James, 1 in Falmouth, Trelawney, 1 in Brownstown, St. Anne, 1 in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, and 1 in Lucy, Hanover. So 7 in total.
Mr. Greenland says the decision to suspend services in these locations was in an effort to rid its network of scammers.
Because of the nature of our business, our business is about facilitating legitimate customers who have need to send and receive money. Our network and others like ours have been using this way to defraud customers of hard-earned cash. We have put in, over time, a series of anti-fraud measures, which include investing in technology and enhancing with people to rid ourselves as best as possible of the scourge that is affecting Jamaica. The issue of scamming, I want to be very clear, is a national problem.
He says the company has seen an increased usage on its network for purposes other than what it was intended to do.
As a consequence, we have decided, therefore, to put measures in place to reduce this, with a hope that it will not only reduce but eliminate those persons who are using it for means other than what it was intended for.
Right.
So we have decided to, do a little review to ensure that our policies, our procedures are being followed, are being adhered to. And that's why we have taken the action we have taken.
The senior vice president says a timeline for normalcy to return to these locations cannot be given at this time. He says the affected locations will be reopened when the company is satisfied that adequate additional anti-fraud measures have been taken.
We are reviewing and we hope to have the matter resolved within the shortest possible time. It could take a few days or a few weeks, but we are not working towards a time period. More so, we are working towards ensuring that whatever policies and procedures that we have, that they are in fact being adhered to, and we may undergo increased training and other things to ensure that once we reopen, we know exactly where we're at.
In the meantime, Western Union and GKMS say they are aware that the closures will have an impact on their customers as well as their operations. However, they are encouraging customers to use other locations nearest to them.
Few customers might be inconvenienced because they may have to go a little further to collect their money. Remember now, we have over 130 locations that are available. There is a location nearest you, I can assure you. So whilst we are down on 7 locations, the remaining network is up and running. And all our legitimate customers are welcome to visit any location to send or receive their money. Our job is to protect those legitimate customers. So I do apologize if there's any inconvenience caused at this time.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says there is strong confidence in the economy from the business community and the rest of the country. He noted that this unyielding strength of confidence has been reflected in the latest business and consumer confidence indices, which show that business confidence remains above the crucial 100-point mark. The Prime Minister was speaking at the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union's Triennial General Assembly at Wolmer's High School for Boys in Kingston recently. Mr. Holness said the confidence in the economy has been reflected in the number of loans made to the private sector and other individuals from financial institutions. He said overall the loans to the private sector have increased by over 30%, as at February 2017 versus February 2016. He said people are borrowing to invest and the banks are lending for investment again, noting that there is a shift happening from consumer to investment lending. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister added that loans to the manufacturing sector increased by 22%. Loans to the construction and land development sector increased by 15%, and loans to the tourism sector accelerated by 31%. He also said that approximately 22,000 more persons were employed at the end of January 2017 when compared to the end of January 2016. This, is the Prime Minister said, has resulted in an increase in the employment rate of 12.7% to 13.3%. The Public Sector Transformation Oversight Committee, PSTOC, says all the structural benchmarks under the precautionary standby arrangement between the government and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, have been met for the month of May. Anthony Morgan reports.
Co-chair of the Public Sector Transformation Oversight Committee, PSTOC, Danny Roberts, says the government has met all second quarter benchmarks.
Identifying the positions that will be affected due to the implementation of shared corporate services and human resource, instituting rules to prohibit the rehiring of participants who are part of the early retirement program back into the public service for at least 5 years. Submitting to the Governor General the rules and standards for Public Service Commission for limiting their for persons who have reached retirement age, as well as contract officers. And also a time-bound plan has been submitted to the Cabinet.
PSTOC says it has also reviewed the implementation schedule for commitments under the SBA program and has received updates on a number of others. It says the functions of the Agricultural Credit Board and the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies have been integrated, and that the completion of the mergers awaits the passage of the Agricultural Loan Societies and approved organizations legislation by Parliament. The committee says the legislation setting up the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority has been passed, adding that the passage of the regulations to give effect to the merge of the cocoa, coconut and coffee industry boards into the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority is to commence shortly. And there may be also more good news for the next quarter. Danny Roberts says the country is also on target to meet all those benchmarks.
In terms of the structural benchmark, we are on track to meeting some of those all the benchmarks for the next quarter, and there are some commitments which we're also working on. But so at the end of the next quarter, we'll be able to report as to where we are. But so far, we're on track.
Meanwhile, Mr. Roberts says the committee has endorsed the conduct of an engagement survey to be executed by the U. Lawson Shearer Trade Union Education Institute and the Mona School of Business and Management at the University of the West Indies. He says the purpose of the study will be to investigate key elements of the organizational climate and culture in the public service, with particular focus on employee engagement.
To what extent we can provide for improved public sector performance, and also to determine the extent to which we can examine what are the main drivers of engagement within public sector organization, and describe existing organizational culture, and determine whether it is consistent with the mission, the objectives, the core values of the transformed public sector.
Mr. Roberts says the island-wide study will begin in September. He says it should identify areas of strength and best practices, as well as potential risks and opportunities for improvement in the sector.
The result from that study will help to determine how best to transition the public sector worker into a new public sector transformed environment. To what extent can we have the public sector workers feel engaged, feel that sense of ownership and participation in the transition, and ultimately to improve the level of their performance and the level of efficiency of the public service to the public.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Still to come, the OUR hails Privy Council decision on JPS. The details after the break. Welcome back. The Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, has welcomed the Privy Council's recent decision dismissing the appeal brought by the Jamaica Public Service, JPS. The Light and Power Company wanted to overturn the ruling of the Court of Appeal, which stated that JPS cannot recover from its customers billions of dollars in back pay, which was paid out to the employees in a reclassification exercise in 2008. The payments were retroactive to January 1, 2001. More in this report. JPS's claim at the time of submission to the OUR was 4.27 billion Jamaican dollars, and had it been successful in its appeal to the Privy Council, customers would have had to repay the 4.27 billion plus interest from 2010 to 2017 at a rate of 12.56%. The OUR estimates that the total amount on this basis would have been $9.78 billion to date. The Privy Council, which heard the matter on June 7, 2017, delivered the judgment on July 6, 2017. It dismissed JPS's appeal, a confirmation of the OUR's refusal to allow JPS's reclassification costs to be borne by customers. On March 11, 2009, JPS filed a claim seeking approval to recover $4.27 billion incurred for salary payments to employees and related taxes by way of tariff adjustment using the Z-factor provision in its license. JPS asserted that the claim fell within the Z-factor provision because it resulted from factors that were outside of managerial control, and that to deny the recovery of such costs would be to unfairly penalize the company. In a determination notice issued on March 2, 2010, the OUR dismissed the claim. In arriving at its decision, the OUR acknowledged that the Z-factor provision recognized the fact that the company's costs may be affected by random factors that might cause its costs to increase independent of any decision or action on the part of a company. However, the salary compensation claim did not qualify under the Z-factor provision, since it was the consequence of managerial decisions, in that JPS agreed with the labor unions in 2000 to embark on the reclassification exercise and must have had in its contemplation that it would result in the likely increase in overall workers' compensation. The OUR further argued that if the reclassification costs were considered legitimate, they ought rightly to have been included in JPS's 2004 five-year tariff review submission, which followed the Industrial Dispute Tribunal's August 2003 decision on the reclassification. The government is spending $23 million to ensure the smooth implementation of a 3-month traffic ticket amnesty scheduled to begin on August 2. Here's more.
The money being spent will cover the hiring of 22 young persons who are now being trained to respond to queries from motorists during the period. The government is also procuring the services of additional cashier stations and security personnel required to manage the anticipated influx of motorists at the Offices of Tax Administration Jamaica, TAJ. State Minister for National Security Senator Pernell Charles Jr. made the disclosure in the Senate on Friday while piloting the Road Traffic Temporary Ticket Amnesty Act 2017, which makes provisions for the amnesty. He informed that a portion of the $23 million will also be used to conduct a public education campaign via radio, print media, social media, and television to ensure that every motorist is aware of the amnesty, its benefits, and the designated payment locations. Some of the money will facilitate the conducting of a series of briefing sessions with key stakeholders, including the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Ministry of Justice, TAJ, and the Court Management Division. He noted that through this amnesty, which will end on October 31, the government is seeking to recover outstanding fines from tickets issued between September 1, 2010 and July 31, 2017. In the meantime, the State Minister emphasized that the amnesty is not a reward for delinquency. He said it's a practical approach and effort to collect a total sum of $2.84 billion in outstanding traffic tickets as at December 31, 2016. The State Minister noted that the money collected will be used to upgrade the ticket management system utilized by TAJ, JCF, and the courts. It will also go towards the modernization of the court system and the It will also go towards the modernization of the court system and the employment of more judges. Some of the funds will also assist the Transport Ministry in modernizing the methods used to enforce the Road Traffic Act to ensure greater compliance by motorists. For BATV News, I'm Norda Francis Williams.
The Port Trailer Haulage Association, PTHA, is warning about an imminent strike. The Haulage Association says owners of trucking companies are withdrawing their services from the Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited KFTL in protest of the slow turnaround time being experienced when using that facility. The Port Trailer Haulage Association says truckers are frustrated as despite having several meetings with the management of Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited, they have gotten many assurances, but the time it takes for truckers to move one container has not improved. In some instances, they've gotten worse. The association says the delays are creating significant amount of losses for the truckers as they are unable to meet delivery plan with their clients. They claim that the transference of a container from the terminal that should take an average of 30 minutes now takes 2 to 4 hours. The drivers are therefore upset as their payment is based on the number of container moves they make daily. But given the lengthy turn time, they are only able to make 1 or 2 moves per day, which makes it impossible for them to earn a reasonable income. The Port Trailer Haulage Association says it's therefore calling on the government, the Port Authority of Jamaica, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, the Jamaica Manufacturers Association, the Jamaica Exporters Association, the Shipping Association of Jamaica, and other stakeholders to join them in addressing what they are calling a logistical nightmare that truckers are facing at Kingston Freeport Terminal on a daily basis. And stay with us, regional and international stories are next. Welcome back. It's time now for regional and international news. A recent survey has suggested that Barbados' high level of taxation is proving to be a major hindrance to national productivity. The study, commissioned by the Productivity Council, was conducted between April and July last year by senior lecturer of management science at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, Dwayne Devonish. Some 150 local private sector organizations drawn from 7 sectors were questioned. The sectors included accommodation and restaurants, construction, manufacturing, wholesale and retail, transportation, financial services, and other services. Private sector managers admitted that the general business environment within Barbados is still not conducive to the promotion of productivity at a national level due to high levels of taxation. They added that low investor and corporate confidence, inefficiencies in certain government services, and perceived lack of support from government in the forms of incentives and other forms of technical support were also factors. The publication comes at a time when the Barbados government is facing an uphill battle in its implementation of a new package of taxes, including an increase in its controversial National Social Responsibility Levy from 2 to 10%. Economists polled by Reuters have given their predictions for the big 4 central banks, with most seeing the Fed holding until the 4th quarter before raising rates again. David Pollard reports.
Central bank guidance and reality, 2 sometimes very different concepts for economists polled by Reuters, even when it comes to the Fed. The latest poll shows many revising their forecasts and pushing out expectations for a rate hike until Q4. If still predicting, the Fed will announce a plan to shrink its $4 trillion balance sheet beforehand.
With the Fed, we know the data is good in the US. We know the economic data is strong. We know that the economy could stand and continue to operate fully on if you do start to reduce that balance sheet. We expect the Fed to start doing that in September.
The median forecast in the latest poll on the Bank of England sees rates held at their record low until 2019. That at odds with financial markets, who at the time of the poll had fully priced in a hike by May of next year, despite some readjustments as new data showed inflation softening to 2.6% year on year.
Wages are low and household debt is increasing. So you have an issue now if you start to raise the rate. So that's the biggest problem at the moment is the UK. That's where the biggest grey area lies.
And price is likely to be the dominant thought for Haruhiko Kuroda when the Bank of Japan meets this week. It may revise up its forecast for growth, but is thought likely to delay its timing for hitting a 2% inflation target, currently pegged to the next fiscal year. Which leaves the ECB.
Yes, on the face of it, the economic data is better, but we still have growing issues with the likes of Greece. We still have Italian debt problems in terms of the banks. There are still the same issues going on with the Eurozone that were going on 5 years ago.
Mario Draghi and his policymakers not seen raising rates until the fourth quarter of 2018, though most of those polled see the ECB as ready to announce a tapering of its 60 billion euros of monthly asset purchases as early as September.
When Detroit filed for bankruptcy in 2013, it was and still is the largest U.S. city ever to do so. The Motor City has since emerged from financial ruin much stronger, but now U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is planning to cut back on its city like Detroit, which has left many worried if its rival will last. Al Jazeera's John Hendren reports from Detroit.
The Motor City is moving forward. Less than 3 years after Detroit emerged from bankruptcy, it has a new light rail system and a more economic.
I decided to move my business back to Detroit about 2.5 years ago with the mission to basically be a part of the change.
Longtime Detroiters and newly arrived millennials are piecing the city back together and transforming lives. Tamika Evans went from living in a homeless shelter to sewing coats for the homeless.
It's given me a way to get back on my feet for myself and my daughter, and I only see up from here.
Now, just as Detroit needs the federal government to continue investing to keep up that, President Donald Trump is retreating from the social services business. It plans to cut back on funding for schools, healthcare, and aid to cities. And that has many here wondering if what they call the Detroit miracle is endangered.
Trump is a danger to every bit of progress that the United States has made. A lot of the growth that we had, a lot of the money that helped bring up some of these neighborhoods that were kind of down, was federal dollars.
Detroit's recovery is far from complete. Outside of the city center, large areas still struggle with high levels of poverty and crime. When the auto industry largely left Detroit, so did its people. At one time, 2 million people called it home. Only about
1 million people. And that would be at least a generation, I would say, before we could get back to 1 million, if we get there at all.
But ask any Detroiter about the future these days, and you're likely to hear an optimistic answer.
What's happening in Detroit right now isn't because the government stepped in and said, you know what, we believe in Detroit again. It was, people in the city who said, you know what, I'm sick of my city getting a bad reputation. Let's do something to.
It's a long and blight-filled road back to normal. The city will get there. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Detroit.
The British government's decision to pull out of Fisheries Convention is seen as a possible first step to closing more British waters to non-UK fishing boats. For Dutch fishermen, that could mean losing half their catch. Here's more.
For generations, Dutch fishermen have been crossing to the other side of the North Sea to catch their fish. But with the UK preparing to leave the European Union and already withdrawing from international treaties, they fear they'll be denied access to their traditional fishing grounds. Business has been fishing there for over 50 years.
Our seas are already very small, and with Brexit taking effect, it looks as though there won't be much left for us to fish.
The recent decision by the British government to pull out of the 1964 Fishery Convention that allows other European countries to fish between 6 and 12 miles from its coast is seen as the first step to close more waters for fishing boats coming from outside of the UK. Britain's Environment Minister Michael Gove stated,
When we leave the European Union, we'll become an independent coastal state, and that means we can then extend control over our waters to 200 miles, or the median line between Britain and France or Britain and Ireland.
Of all the countries surrounding the North Sea, the Netherlands depends most on British waters for fish.
About half of the fish here come from British waters. But with fisheries being an important part of the Brexit negotiations, many of these fishermen are worried about their future.
The majority of the British catch is exported to the European markets. Access the UK does not want to lose in a Brexit deal. Dutch fishery associations are urging their British neighbours to continue to share their waters.
These are the British waters, the blue line. We take about 80% of our herring here in the waters close to Scotland. We have been fishing herring in that part of the North Sea since the 1400s. So we talk about, well, not decades, but really ages. I mean, herring is one of the food items which is mostly, well, it defines a little bit the identity of the Dutch food, partly, herring.
Nee, hoort bij Nederland.
Herring is really part of the Netherlands. It's not just fish, it's the whole cultural thing behind it.
According to fisherman Cor Locker, the sea was once seen as shared territory.
40 years ago, it used to be more friendly.
Fishermen, the tides may be about to turn. Fleur Launsbach, Al Jazeera, IJmuiden.
Talking Stocks is after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. 43 stocks traded today, of which 18 advanced, 19 declined, and 6 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 23 points to close at 233,150. The junior index declined by 16 points to close at 2,970 points. Over 6 million units traded, valued at more than $162 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the US dollar market, over 1 million units traded, valued at more than $450,000 US. Sagicor Group, with over 3 million units changing hands, accounted for 52% of the market volume. Proven Investments was second with over 1 million units trading. Lasco Distributors, with over 164,000 units, accounted for 2% of the market volume, crossing the floor. Cable and Wireless was the top advancer, up 12 cents to close at 93 cents. Followed by Supreme Ventures, up 51 cents to close at $7.91. And Jetcon Corporation, up 28 cents to close at $4.50. The main decliners were Berger Paints, losing $1.92 to close at $14.08, followed by Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, down $1.23 to close at $12.27, and Radio Jamaica down 12 cents to close at $1.38. And that's all the news we have for this evening. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Grace Kennedy Money Services and Western Union say they will be suspending money transfer services in several of its Western Jamaica locations. They say the decision is a result of an unusually high number of suspected fraudulent transactions being reported. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Andrew Laidley. Pleasant viewing.